Hi, Steve here from the Vinyl Record Mission, and today I want to share 5 artists with you from the Tone Poet series that before Tone Poet, I didn't know it. And I want to share those titles with you. Stick around.
Your 2 favorite guys, Ryan and Steve from the Vinyl Record Mission.
Today I would like to discuss and show my gratitude for a label and a project that has probably been beaten like a dead horse over and over again, but for good reason. And that's the Tone Poet series from Blue Note. Don Was, Joe Harley, Kevin Gray, all these fabulous, fabulous human beings got together and were given access to the Blue Note vaults. And they chose which records to reissue under this new Tone Poet series and which records to reissue under the Classic series. Well, the Tone Poet series, to me, far superior, a little bit more money, but to me, well worth it. And it was partly due to the amazing covers and also the involvement of Joe Harley on the production end of it. Of course, Kevin Gray, the great remastering engineer at Coherent Audio, has much to do with the amazing sound quality of these albums. And Francis Wolff, of course, was involved in these records to a great extent, and that being due to them including these photographs inside these beautiful glossy Stratton gatefold covers. Well, until before Tone Poet, for the 20-something years of my collecting, I was very much a jazz collector, and I love jazz. And finding jazz in the wild was not easy out here in Southern California, especially East Coast jazz, like, Blue Note titles and prestige titles. So I was very limited to the artists that I would come across. And of course, we all know the Lee Morgans and, the Cornbread and the Hank Mobley. We heard of the Hank Mobley, Horace Silver, Art Blakey, Donald Byrd, Jackie McLean, all those guys, the cream off the top. Everybody knew who they were. But, when someone mentions, Sonny Clark or Andrew Hill or Sonny Red, or Wayne Shorter, of course, everybody knew for, one title, but still that was a little bit deeper than most, of the novice jazz guys went. So what I am really grateful for in this series is that I got to discover some new artists, some artists that might not have been as prolific as the Jimmy Smiths, and the Horace Silvers and the Art Blakeys, who had, the Jazz Messengers. Just, the discography for these guys is long. And these other artists that I discovered through the release of the Tone Poet series, I'm so grateful for, because it actually introduced me to a lot of new artists. So I'm going to share those artists with you right now. Check them out. They're all really, really great. And it was very refreshing to me to hear some different musicians, and their take on bop jazz and post bop and hard bop and avant-garde styles and blues, jazzy blues and all kinds of stuff like that. But I'm going to start with the first album that I was very, very excited and happy to come across this artist, and it was Andrew Hill. I never saw an Andrew Hill album in the wild, ever. And this is his album, Dance with Death. It's got Charles Tolliver, Joe Farrell, Victor Sporles, and Billy Higgins on drums. And let me tell you what I also learned. You can pretty much tell how good an album is going to be, or, when with the personnel. You'll find a lot of these artists have amazing personnel on them. And I noticed right away that was something that they all had in common. But this is what I'm talking about. These album jackets are just absolutely incredible. These photos you rarely get to see. And so it's definitely worth the price of admission. These albums were done with extreme care and great liner notes. I mean, if you want to learn about jazz, just read the liner notes and you'll find out a lot about the album and the artists and so on and so forth. And of course, you guys already know this, but they did these on the classic Blue Note, label like so. Beautiful 180 gram vinyl. Kevin Gray's mastery, in the remastering. And yeah, Joe Harley's amazing production skills. This album is amazing. Joe Farrell is a real standout on this record for me. Joe Farrell's an amazing tenor saxophone player, very, very talented. Not just that, he plays the oboe, the French horn, the alto sax. He just was an amazing artist, going way back. Most of his work was known on the CTI label, and he's also known for saxophone with Return to Forever, Chicoria, and some of those other stuff. But most of his stuff was on CTI. He did some things with George Benson, but very little on Blue Note albums. But man, does he stand out on this record. Unfortunately, he died very young, I think at 41, due to some rare form of cancer, which was really, really sad. A great loss to the jazz community. But nonetheless, he definitely left his mark. And this was one of the albums that I was really, really happy to discover, thanks to the Tone Poet series. That's the first one, and I've got 4 more to go. The next album is Jack Wilson, and this is Easterly Winds. And again, like I said before, just look at the personnel. Lee Morgan, Garrett Garnet Brown, hadn't heard of him, but I knew who Jackie McLean was. Bob Cranshaw, I knew who that was, and Billy Higgins, of course, the greatest drummer, one of the greatest drummers of all time, right up there with Philly Joe and another drummer I'll tell you about in just a minute that's on one of these records. But this is a beautiful record as well. Jackie McLean and Lee Morgan are always amazing when they're together. And so this is a record that I was also very happy to discover. I wasn't real familiar with Jack Wilson before, other than his album on Atlantic with Roy Ayers, which is what he seems to be most known for. And he had a very short career. He ended up, I think, being more of a teacher and an instructor than he was a recording artist. But again, beautiful color inner photos here from the amazing Francis Wolff, and amazing music on here, just beautiful stuff. The song Nirvana on there is amazing. And then we'll get to this here. I've always been a big Sonny Clark fan, and one of the things I'm really, really grateful for is this is a great example of bop trio, really, of a bop trio, and an amazing one at that. Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones. Paul Chambers was 22 years old when he recorded this album. There he is right there. You're looking at that little baby face, It's Paul Chambers, the amazing Paul Chambers. And then you've got Sonny Clark at like 26, and Philly Joe's like Grandpa Joe right here. He's like 34 years old when they recorded this album in 1957. But this is an amazing record. They cover Tad Dameron's Tad's Delight in a beautiful way. They literally just rip Bebop, the Gillespie tune, and just shred it. It's like an unbelievable, grueling pace. Definitely a great example of hard bop. And the beauty of this is that it's a trio, and Sonny Clark really stands out. This is if you want to experience Sonny Clark's piano skills and his dexterity and his voicing and everything, this is the album that you would want to buy. Most of the Tone Poet series, most of the Blue Note classic and Tone Poet series, very much are filled with quartets and quintets. Very few trios in the series. This to me is one of the best of the trio releases. So definitely give this a listen. It's an amazing album. Beautiful variety. There's also a great ballad on here, and it's I'll Remember April. Sonny just knows how to show his his tender side, let's just say, on that song. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So another one that you might want to consider if you haven't already picked it up. This is an artist that I had never heard of. You know, I had heard of Sonny Clark before, but the other one was like S for Sonny and Sonny's Crib. You know, everybody was chasing those, but I had never ever seen the Sonny Clark Trio album anywhere. This Sonny Red was a really cool find for me. And again, you've got Wynton Kelly, Sam Jones, Paul Chambers, and then the great Jimmy Cobb. We lost him, I think, last year, or the year before that, maybe. But this was an amazing record as well. On here, you've got I think it's the Lop and Stairway to the Stars. You've got Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb on bass and drums, and the rest of the album is Roy Brooks and Sam Jones on bass and drums. But this is another one that is very bluesy. This is more along the blues jazz, which I really dig. Some people don't like it, but I like all kinds of jazz, except for, you know, the extreme avant-garde type jazz, like the way out there stuff from like Ornette Coleman and some of the other artists. But yeah, I can't do some of that stuff. But anything from like boogaloo jazz, you know, the Turrentine and the Lou Donaldson style of jazz, I can do that. I love it. Blues jazz like John Patton, I can do that. And there's a lot of that on here, but definitely with more of a swinging, you know, bop influence to it. So another really beautiful album. This one has the black and white in there, Francis Wolff photos, because this album is actually from 1959. And so it's a little bit earlier, and they're still taking black and white photos. So Sonny Red, yep, definitely an amazing album that I was really happy to discover. And lastly, this guy was known for pretty much, at the time that I was looking for records and digging out there in the wild, he was known for this, Speak No Evil. Yeah, this is an original OG Blue Note. And of course, this was the one that everybody really, really loved. And I didn't know much else about him other than that, and it never really delved any deeper. But then Tone Poet came out with this, and this is Schizophrenia. Yeah, this is Schizophrenia. It was recorded in 1967. These are all Rudy Van Gelder, you know, recordings that they recorded from the master tapes and remastered under the supervision of Kevin Gray, under the supervision of, let's see, Joe Harley, and Kevin Gray was the mastering engineer. And this album as well, amazing. One of the guys that I discovered on here that I hadn't heard of really before was Joe Chambers, and he's the drummer on here. The other guys I was familiar with, Curtis Fuller, James Spalding I hadn't heard of actually, Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, everybody knows them. But Joe Chambers, I had a couple of Bobby Hutcherson's albums, but I didn't know that Joe Chambers spent majority of his recording studio time on Bobby Hutcherson records. Yeah, he did like 10 albums with Bobby Hutcherson. And this album, he really, really shines. That's one of the things that stood out to me was Joe Chambers' drum skills. And here you see them in there. I don't think, yeah, there he is down there, right there, Joe Chambers. And yeah, on the song Playground and Kryptonite, he just is amazing. His cymbal work, the time he keeps, him and Ron Carter are always just the masters of time on this record. And you know, you've got one tune on here by James Spalding, who is also the tenor saxophone player, if I'm not mistaken. No, Wayne Shorter's tenor, and Spalding is alto sax and flute. And the flute work on the song that James Spalding wrote, which is Kryptonite, is absolutely beautiful. It's unsurpassed. So I was very impressed with that as well. And of course, Wayne Shorter weaves in and out of his avant-garde ability and his bop ability, hard bop, blues jazz, all of that he incorporates, and then he hits you with this beautiful ballad. And I'm not sure if it's called Miyako, Japanese name. People are still wondering if maybe he met a girl when he was in Japan named Mayako, but it remains to be seen. But that song is absolutely beautiful. And so Wayne shows his really, great ability to be really diverse, and also works really greatly with Joe Chambers. And I also discovered in that same series, of course, I have to throw this in, but this is another one that Joe Chambers is on. And this is actually one of my favorite Wayne Shorter albums. This album is outstanding. Adam's Apple, you've got to check this out. It's on the Tone Poet. This is the classic series right here, not the Tone Poet. But I just wanted to show that 2 in a row with Joe Chambers on drums. So these guys worked really, really great together. So that's it. Just wanted to share a little bit of the jazz side of me. I am a huge jazz buff. This is all my jazz collection in here in the front. And it's probably what I have most of. I just don't talk about it that much because I'm digging in, and jazz isn't something that you find in large collections, it seems like, as much. You know, I'm finding more rock and psych and funk and soul. So I just continue to dig for jazz and hope that it comes up. But these are definitely some records that I'm thankful for. And again, I just want to thank Tone Poet for Don Juaz and Joe Harley and Kevin Gray for all the hard work that they've put into this project. I hope it continues for many years to come. I myself often wonder when that vault is gonna run dry. Kind of like the storage unit that I'm digging through right now. I'm like, I wonder when is it's gonna stop producing, great records. I'm sure eventually we'll get through all the records, but what they have available to them is just absolute gold. And I hope they keep it coming. And I've been very thankful for the education that I've gotten from these records, which in their original state, in their OG pressing state, are nearly impossible to find. If and when you do, they are not brand new. And 99% of the time, they have been very well loved, and they've got no more love left to give you. Meaning that they have been overplayed, they haven't been well taken care of, they were in smoke-filled rooms, the covers are tattered. Unless you find a collection that's full of, first pressings that a guy really curated well, then you're not going to be able to afford it, because it's going to be, $100,000. So yeah, these records are not easy to find. And this was the greatest idea that anybody has had in the jazz community for a very, very long time, reissuing these records the way they did. And they got the right people to do it. So thanks again, everybody at Tone Poet, Joe Harley, Kevin Gray, Don Juaz. I'm very grateful. And please give these records a listen so you know what to look for next time. This is Steve, the Vinyl Record Mission. Until next time, take care.
If you haven't, make sure you hit like and subscribe to the Vinyl Record Mission, so that way you don't miss out on any future content. More videos coming your way.